Dr. Peta, I am really excited to talk about tapping with you today because as a hypnotist, I've done a little dabbling in EFT, but I definitely don't know the depths that this kind of work can go. So, Dr. Peta, I want to welcome you to this interview series. I think you're just a wealth of information and knowledge, and you're really going to serve this audience here today. Can you tell us more about who you are, what you do, and what motivates you to do the work that you do?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the invitation. Always happy to talk about tapping. So I'm a clinical and health psychologist registered here in Australia, but also associate professor at Bond University in Queensland, which just allows me then to obviously use my research time here to investigate what I love, which just happens to be tapping over the last 15 odd years. So I guess part of my motivation, because I knew nothing about this area myself, a couple of decades ago, but working with clients and particularly my private practice has been in eating disorders, I just found traditional mainstream therapies weren't working well. So I was kind of complaining, if you like, to a colleague, and he had found tapping, this is 20 years ago. I had no idea what he was talking about, but did get to sort of experience some of it myself and kind of went, oh, wow, never seen anything like this, because we knew nothing about how it worked. We have much better understanding now, but we were willing to give it a go. And that probably started for me this very different world to traditional talk therapy and things like that. So I have sort of along the way just become known for the EFT research, particularly here in Australia. So it's been a journey and certainly one that's outside the square, but I love it.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure a lot of this audience can resonate with you about like emotional and stress eating, especially, if you're a viewer out there and you're struggling with anxiety and emotional eating is showing up for you. I've personally seen EFT be done with somebody who struggled with emotional eating in one of my hypnosis trainings. And I got to watch that transformation. And I mean, it was just mind blowing. So Dr. Peta, can you talk about how tapping is different from like any other holistic healing technique and what specifically like caught your interest about it?
Yes, I think, the speed at which it works took my breath away in the beginning. What had happened at the time, my colleague that was trying to get this message through to me that maybe this was something that we should look at. And of course I was ignoring him at the time because he kept saying this weird tapping technique. And I'm like, you're not really selling it well to me. But we were in the middle of an eating disorder support group. So one that we ran together. A young girl had a panic attack. And it was quite a large group. And so he said, look, I'll just take her outside, help her calm down. And they were back within about, 5 or 6 minutes. And she was calm and composed. And she'd been hyperventilating 5 minutes earlier. And I didn't know what he'd done. So I kind of was questioning, I hope he didn't pop her a Valium or something like that, because that's a bit unethical. And so by the time the group ends and everyone leaves, I said, obviously, something happened. What'd you do? Deep breathing? And he said, no, I did that tapping technique. And because I'd seen such a rapid transformation in this young girl in my group, it really sparked my interest to kind of go, oh, this is not what we normally kind of work with in traditional talk therapy. And I think, that is what surprises a lot of people as well. And you talking about emotional eating, and that's been our research area certainly for about 12 years, that people not only reduce that level of emotional eating or food cravings that, they can't stay away from and things like that. But when we do 6 and 12-month follow-up, they actually forget what the food was that had that power over them. And I think to me, that was the most surprising thing, that not only was it working really quickly, but it was lasting such a long time over time. And we've even done 2-year follow-ups on some of our groups. They can't remember the food that actually was, absolutely taking over their whole life. So kind of sitting back in this space in the years gone by, sort of shaking my head a lot of the time going, this is really curious. This is really interesting and so different, because I guess it's a really mindful technique as well. You actually need to be engaged with how you feel and what's going on for it to work, which is kind of similar to some of the other mindfulness approaches out there. But I guess my personal experience of it in that group was what really opened my mind in the beginning.
Yeah, like that. I love how you pointed out like the rapid change, and also like we forget what the problem was. And
Yes.
For those of you watching, maybe you've tried like, pushing food away or, let me just eliminate complete like food categories, or let's do ketosis or fasting. And, as a hypnotist, I know one thing I communicate with clients is like, this is an emotional problem, right? This problem was created on a subconscious level. So can you see why, these are all these different thinking strategies and plans and nutritions and diets is not enough, right? You have to work on that emotional level.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And really cravings, when you think about them, and we measure all of this. So we ask people to fill out questionnaires on how much power they think food has over them. Can they, restrain themselves, things like that, willpower. And mostly if we're reducing that level of anxiety that's in a craving that you can't resist, then it just dissipates, it goes away. And it seems that the brain can restructure itself so that 6 months, 12 months, 2 years later, it's actually the furthest thing from their mind, because they actually haven't been hardwiring that anymore because the desire's not there. So it's such, as a stress management, a stress reduction technique, the applications are like so wide of what they can actually apply it to.
Yeah, for those of you watching, I'm just getting so excited listening to Dr. Peta talk, because I know I went to not a counselor or psychologist, but I went to a hypnotist who did tapping. I had a fear of walking up to strangers and talking to people I didn't know, and I'm sure a lot of this audience here who sort of has an anxiousness in social situations. I did this for a fear of talking to strangers, and I can't even put into words the night and day difference that I felt afterwards. I was completely sold on the process, and I continued to go back for more work. But for those people who are kind of new to this, how does tapping on the body, what's specific, what's significant about these points, and how does it help us let's say process emotions that are stuck in the body?
Yeah, definitely. And Lydia, I just want to point out, you and I are strangers, yet we're talking seamlessly. So obviously, that session's absolutely had a fantastic effect.
Yeah.
Really, we've got such a body of research in acupuncture, and we are obviously borrowing on that. So these known acupuncture points that are on the body. And we even have studies, even as of 2021, that are showing the density of neural vascular structure at acupuncture points is a real thing. So they've actually been injecting dye and doing studies like that, and MRI and whatever. So back in the day, so we're obviously using a clinical EFT, which is attributed to Gary Craig, and that now is about 50 years ago. So that's how long it's been around. We've been testing it in research for about the last 2 decades. That we know now through lots and lots of different biological studies that stimulating a pressure point, whether that's on the base, and we just happen to pick 8 of them that we're using, and there's lots of them, lots more than that on the body. So anyone familiar with any kind of acupuncture or any other sort of system where they know those acupuncture points, there's a lot more than what we use. We just use 8 because it's nice and easy for people to remember. But we know that stimulating them, whether or not it's a needle or for us, it's tapping on a point for with 2 fingers just for a brief amount of time, that when the mind's engaged there about the distress, so if that's I'm worried about something, I feel angry, I'm stressed about, I've got a food craving, I've got chronic pain, that's our latest research we're doing here in Australia, that we know that if the mind's engaged and you stimulate this pressure point, there is a release, there is a message that appears to affect that amygdala, the stress center, to calm its activity. We also know lots of other things happen. So we measure cortisol, the stress hormone. We measure EEG. We've actually been doing MRI studies here in Australia. We can actually see there's a whole system here. What we're currently proposing, and we are testing this in a couple of trials, is that autonomic reactivity in the body appears to be really impacted by stimulating an acupuncture point. So in tapping, it's nice and easy. If you don't like needles, that's another phobia. But if you don't like needles, it's all right. You can just tap on it, and even little children as young as 5 can do the same thing. It seems that we're really having an impact on the body's biochemistry to calm everything down that's happening physiologically. And therefore people will say, oh, I can think more clearly about my problem, or that doesn't bother me anymore. And because we're not hardwiring it by thinking over and over again, like we might be thinking about that argument with the co-worker from work, because that's not happening anymore, it's like the brain can have a different neural pathway. And that's why they might look back in 6 months because they wrote it in their journal and went, oh, I haven't thought about that ever since. And I haven't been bothered by it because they haven't done that hardwiring that we normally see when people ruminate and think of all those conversations after the fact.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought up the topic of willpower too, because I know what a lot of this audience is probably used to is, okay, let me, maybe they've gone to a therapist or counselor or something, and they've been given like a breathing technique, or they've been, count backwards from 10 or something like that. And they find that things aren't sticking.
Yes.
And it's because, right, this new repatterning, this new for the nervous system to actually make a change, they're actually, it actually has to be kind of done in the moment, right? Like there's something significant about and that is the great thing about this technique, is you can use it anywhere. It may be kind of weird in a meeting, right? Some people may be like, well, okay, what about in a meeting? But you can also leave the room, you can excuse yourself, you can, I've done there's been times like I've done a talk and I have some nerves right before the talk, but I would just go out into the hallway, tap on those points, and then I've calmed down. So for those people pleasers out there who maybe struggle, to put themselves first, you can, excuse yourself, or if you're trying to do conflict resolution with like your spouse or with a friend of yours, and you struggle with conflict resolution, you can excuse yourself and very well use this technique to calm yourself down or to process whatever's coming up.
Absolutely. And we even teach, there's discrete waves of tapping. So I know we're going to walk through sort of the main points in our talk today, but we do teach people that on the side of each fingernail is an acupressure point. So often people that nail bite will say, when I bite my nails, I feel my stress reduce. And that's because there's actually an acupuncture point where the nail bed touches the skin. So we even teach our students in exams to squeeze the sides of each nail, like hands sitting in their lap, public transport, meetings, things like that, and can still get that physiological shift. So there's actually some really lovely applications where you might not use the traditional points, but you can actually get away with, if you can't get out to get into the hallway to do some tapping, you can at least calm your body down by squeezing the fingernails and things like that as well.
That's so incredible. Like I want to learn all this too. And I know you've actually written a book specifically for introverts, and I'm sure that word resonates with half, or if not all of this audience is here anxiety showing up in their lives. Like, I'm really curious, like what was, why choose introverts? And then like, what are the kind of struggles introverts have that tapping can help them with?
Yeah, so really the research suggests that 3/4 of the world are introverts and only 1/4 are extroverts. So
wow,
a colleague and I, yes, very and I do like to point out to people I'm actually an introvert, but not an anxious introvert. So there's different types of introverts. There seems to be 4 different types and only 1 type of extrovert. But really, a colleague and I were talking about it. She's a practitioner too, and she's an introvert. And we were sort of saying, introverts often have a lot of great value, and there's 3/4 of them in the world, a lot of, things that they could put forward in a workplace or a family or whatever. But what holds them back a lot of the time is that kind of internal dialogue of worry and stress and anxiety. And because both her and I had done tapping for such a long time ourselves, and realised our nervous systems had just calmed down, that we were able to put ourselves out into public places, to be able to stand up at a conference or a training and things like that, and people not believe that we're introverts. We thought all introverts should have the gift of tapping. So, of course, Tapping for Introverts resulted as a book, and particularly for introverts to learn how to calm that physiology, so that if you do have something that you want to share out there, that doesn't hold you back anymore. It was a labour of love and one of those passion projects that we were ultimately talking about some of the things that we've done. But I look back now and, hand on heart would say I was a really anxious, shy child in school, and that held me back. People wouldn't believe it now, but I've actually had tapping in my life for almost 20 years. And it's my physiology now that's really calm. And I've got this technique at my fingertips that I can use. But had I not found it, I do wonder that I would have been quite an anxious adult, perhaps even diagnosed with something. Certainly don't fit anything now. And kind of Tapping for Introverts was part of that process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you ever have, I'm always curious, like, do you ever work with people who are like, they maybe do the tapping and then they find they're like, oh, I don't really feel much difference, or I didn't notice anything, as a hypnotist, I understand what's going on here, but what can you tell, like, or what message can you tell those people who are maybe tapping, but they're not feeling difference? Or they're not
Yeah. So A couple of different ways, I guess, that presents itself. We most often hear that comment if people have looked up videos online and tapped along with somebody, and there's literally hundreds of thousands of videos out there. And because they're actually saying the words the person on the screen who's not live, it's recorded, is saying back to them, if that doesn't resonate 100% with who is doing the tapping, you may not get much change. So tapping actually works really well when you're specific. So if somebody, like there's videos out there about, how to attract more money into your life with tapping, but if that's really not specific to your own feelings or your own family story, it appears as though tapping's not working, but what's actually happening is it's actually not really specific to you at all. So that's what we'll often say to people, that if you've done a video, go and do individual sessions with somebody that can actually tailor it to you, because that's the biggest reason perhaps tapping appears not to work, is people are just too global. We talk about, tabletops and table legs, that they're just tapping on like, I always procrastinate. That's a common one. I always procrastinate. I'm such a procrastinator. But then find they procrastinate again tomorrow and the next day and the next day, because it's too global. It's not about, how do I feel about that? When did I procrastinate and something actually went wrong? Like that kind of thing. So we just keep coming back. If anyone's listening, kind of going, I gave that thing a go 10 years ago, but found it didn't work. Mostly that's the reason, that too general and not specific enough to yourself. So we just encourage people to actually explore it with someone who's skilled and experienced. You'll get a much better outcome.
Yeah, I think this goes for like this any field, even like it doesn't even matter what holistic method you're using. And that's a common question I get too as a hypnotist, is like, well, I do like the YouTube self-hypnosis, or like, again, like you said, like, oh, I do tapping for self-love, or tapping for, releasing anxiety on YouTube. But the issue here, for those of you watching, and maybe you probably have gone to YouTube and you're searching for these self-help tools. And while they can help you achieve something, like you might feel better, you might feel more relaxed, you're not going to get that transformation. You're not going to have that dialogue that is specific to your nervous system, that your nervous system is going to respond to. And that's also something that, I tell, potential clients, is just like, if you're feeling better, you feel like things aren't sticking, it's time to move forward and work with someone who can customize that experience for you, so you get that value.
Yeah, totally agree. It's exactly the same in our space. Yeah.
Yeah. And I heard you talk earlier about like the, I think you said like the inner child, like the, struggles that we have as a children. I know you talk about tapping to release issues from our inner child. How can we connect with our inner child and release that through tapping? I know how we do it as hypnotists, but for those people watching who maybe are brand new to the space of holistic work and tapping, what does that look like tapping to heal like wounds from the past?
Yeah, a couple of different ways. So sometimes when people start to tap, whether they're working with someone or on their own, and they're learning a bit about that, they'll often get memories that pop up. So tapping is actually really quick in revealing some of that, which can kind of take you by surprise. And there are ways in tapping that we can actually kind of go, oh, actually, there's a memory there of something that happened a long time ago, and I'm still holding on to some of that. So there's different ways to apply tapping to actually process what might have happened, whether that's, something small that still bothers you or something much bigger. So of course that can be done. The other thing is often if as an adult, we have a recurring feeling. So we like to talk in terms of patterns. And we're kind of like maybe just always in a state of feeling like the world's not fair, for example. So it's like that feeling. We might say, how old does that feeling feel like? Like if you were to imagine that there was a younger version inside yourself that had that feeling, how old might he or she be? And someone might instantly sort of say, look, 6 years old. That we can actually then use tapping with some guided imagery and imagination kind of visualization work, where you can almost like imagine chatting to that 6-year-old version of yourself in your mind's eye, and even tap on that 6-year-old version, like in your mind's eye again, or on yourself, that type of thing, in order to have a dialogue or a conversation to sort of say, what is it that you need? You're trying to get my attention. I've got this feeling all the time. And it's really lovely work. I've done plenty of this myself as well, because it's like that younger version of yourself might be trying to get your attention and we don't know what to do with it. So we tend to ignore it, which makes it louder. But the minute we kind of connect in and have that conversation and sort of shut our eyes at night and kind of go, I'm going to go and talk to my 6-year-old self and see what they need. And then you can add tapping into it to sort of say, if there's a feeling there, can I help you kind of release that? And most of the time, those inner children say, yes, thank you. I've been trying to get you to help me out for the last 25 years, that kind of thing. And what happens is we say, it's like then that younger self can integrate and grow up to be the age that you are now. And of course, then we stop seeing those childlike behaviors as an adult. So it's really beautiful work.
I had no idea. I never thought about tapping like inside the memory, like on the child. That, like, I'm really interested in trying that now with clients like this. Like, I'm sure like a lot of these viewers, you know, if you're new to this world, if you're new to the holistic community, you know, maybe you've tried doing visualizations. You know, I'm sure a lot of people have been like, well, let me try and visualize the beach to feel better. Let me visualize like snow falling, or, you know, he listens to my favorite song. And again, while these things can be helpful, they're not actually, you know, like we said, rewiring the nervous system, reteaching the body a new way of being. So this is like next level visualization work. It's like you're doing work inside the memory, inside the visualization. And that's really, you know, I'm so glad you talk about that inner child connection, because I mean, this is really what it comes down to. I think it doesn't matter if it's acupuncture or hypnosis or tapping or energy work, Reiki. It's really about communicating and getting through to that inner child that's, you know, screaming out for attention, or for, you know, a lot of this audience, and, you know, are people pleasers. So they're trying to get their needs met through screaming and raising their voice and slamming doors. And here's how many plates I'm holding. Look at me and how stressed I am. And notice these strategies don't work.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, perhaps don't last. They might work in the moment, but don't have that lasting effect over time, which is where I think, you know, hypnosis, EFT, some of the other energy psychology modalities really get to the heart of it, even if you do that with a practitioner, and they last over time. And I think that's what most of us are looking for, is that longevity. So I don't have to keep coming back to counting to 10 and getting myself under control, or, you know, meditating in order to just cope with today. We actually change our whole reaction and really it is about going back to, where did this come from? What happened to me? And, you know, that's where skilled practitioners can ask the right questions. And it's life. I think you said before, it's life transforming. All of these kind of, I call them the fourth wave approaches, because we're getting back to the body. And these fourth waves just are having a very long lasting effect in these people's lives, which I think that's the whole point. That's the whole point of what we do.
Yeah. And then I know maybe some of these viewers are like, well, you know, just how quickly, like when she says rapid change, like what exactly does she mean? How rapid? And like, I can be a testimony to this. I've had tapping done on me. I've seen it done on people in my trainings. And like, this is so rapid. This is so transformational. I know in the demo that I saw, someone came in for sugar cravings. So for those of you who struggle with sugar cravings, or have ever struggled with sugar cravings, stand up. But, you know, of course there's an emotion behind that needing that chocolate, needing to overeat or binge eat or whatever. And when you work with the emotional parts and you're able to process that, Dr. Peta, correct me if I'm wrong, like once you process that thing, it's just gone, right? Like you may have other layers to it, but you'll never have to process that specific thing again.
Exactly. That's right. Most of the time people, it generalizes. So it actually might generalize to kind of other foods or other feelings as well. If for whatever reason there was a different, we say aspect, like a piece of the puzzle that presented itself a week later, a month later, it would usually be something slightly different, more mild, and we would just do one more tapping session and that's it. Like I've seen food cravings that have, you know, given someone a heartache for 50 years collapse in 15 minutes. Like it can be that rapid. Phobias, we know, you know, single sessions have been researched. So there's a load of research that now shows we do not need 6 months, 12 months, 5 years in therapy for these issues. And even compared to gold standards, I'll give you one example. You know, post-traumatic stress disorder, which we see a lot of our, you know, returning war vets suffering and people that have been through trauma, that in Tapping, that is known within 6 sessions, maximum 10 sessions to collapse, don't meet criteria, never have a problem anymore with those symptoms. Yet our gold standards, minimum 24 sessions. They're hour-long sessions. There's your comparison to kind of say even, truly distressing disorders with criteria really respond in a much more rapid way and as quick as 15 minutes for a food craving like that sugar stuff. And forget about it. In 2 years, if I come back and say, so Lydia, how's your chocolate craving? You look at me and go, oh, I don't eat chocolate. What are you talking about? And I look like I'm the crazy one. Yes.
Yeah. I know with the demo I saw, like when she came back in the next day, I mean, it was like I could feel a peace around her. There was just like this, I don't know how to describe it. It was like I felt peaceful around her, but maybe I was just picking up her peacefulness. And it's just like, I mean, for those of you watching, like you're crazy if you don't go grab what Dr. Peta has to offer. So Dr. Peta, I know you have a free gift for this group. And
yes.
Can you tell us more? You have a free gift called Tapping for Stress Reduction. Again, you're crazy if you don't go get this. So please tell us more.
Absolutely. And even if you're brand new to tapping and you've no idea what we're talking about, that ebook will actually give you all of the information up front, because tapping really is just a way to reduce stress. So the book itself will talk a bit about stress and what it does to us, physically and psychologically, emotionally, that kind of thing. But then really walk you through the tapping process. It does have space too for you to keep your ideas of what you tap on. We absolutely recommend people keep a bit of a journal so that you actually can look back and see the difference, because we forget. So it has space where you can say, today I tapped on this, and then in 3 weeks' time, you might look back at that and kind of go, oh, have I even thought about that, or does that bother? And that's the evidence that often people like to see. So the book allows you to do that as well. It has diagrams of the tapping, some links to some videos, particularly if you do want to see me in action doing the tapping for stress reduction. You can actually access that free of charge. So
click the link below to go get this free gift. Like Dr. Peta said, there's videos, there's tutorials, there's everything you need. So you can start this today. You don't have to wait. You don't even have to pay anything. Like, this is a free gift from Dr. Peta. So click the link below, go get it. If you're looking for rapid change, you're tired of spinning your wheels, like, what are you waiting for? I've seen this work. It's so transformational. Obviously, Dr. Peta, super experienced in this, knows what she's doing. If any of this has resonated with you, go check out her book, the Tapping for Introverts, and they can find that on Amazon, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Yep. Fantastic.
Click the link below. For you introverts out there, go get it. Do not wait. Again, what are you waiting for? This offer here is only going to be up for 48 hours. So, rewatch this interview, take it all in, go check out tapping, try it on your own. And, I know that you'll notice a difference, and if you need help, reach out to Dr. Peta. The link to your website will also be below, and check out all her work. And I'm really interested in learning more about this. And Dr. Peta, thank you so much for just sharing all of this wealth and all of this healing work with this audience here today.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. Anytime, reach out, anybody, like Lydia said, happy to answer any questions as you go.
Awesome. And are you taking clients right now? You can do this virtually, right? As well?
Yes. So most people trained are doing virtual sessions these days. We're in the thick of running research trials. So we do often open those up worldwide. So we do run them virtually as well, a lot of our treatment trials. So join the newsletter, everybody, because if you did want to participate, all of the research trials we run around tapping are all free of charge. So there's no cost involved. At the moment, we're in chronic pain research trials, but we do have some exciting ones coming up as of 2022 that might be of interest to you, and you might like to commit and participate in some of those 6 to 8 week sessions.
Yeah. If you're struggling with anxiety, like we talked about binge eating, or like I talked about, fear of walking up to strangers, small talk, things like that. Like, it can be any emotion, right? That if it's something that keeps reoccurring in your life, like, you do not have to carry this with you. And that's really the goal of this whole summit, is to, sub-communicate to all of you viewers out there that there's so many tools out there for change, and, tapping being just one that's extremely effective, extremely quick, like she said, as little as 15 minutes. I've seen it myself. So don't waste any time. Go click the link below, go get all these goodies. Once again, Dr. Peta, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks so much, Lydia.